Followers, all the folks on the IG, much love. We're gonna start live on the FB. We
Live.
already there.
We're
Cool.
there.
Much appreciated. We're back for another Focus Friday.
We are.
Can I still say summer edition?
I said it's the end of summer edition.
Okay. All right. That works too. But summer's still involved.
Summer still. I mean, technically, the last day of summer is tomorrow.
All right. So we still in summer. So summer edition. Focus Friday, 7 o'clock. We here to give y'all your latest and greatest updates on news locally, nationally, internationally, and from a perspective of the community that we don't think gets enough airtime.
Not at all. Not
Right?
at all. So
What's up? We didn't have any music. When I could
we didn't
go
have music.
go music.
Oh my gosh, you are so. Listen, by the time I start the music, like we halfway through the show.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, we'll just close with music.
Why not?
We'll close with music.
Let's
That's
get
what we'll
busy.
do. We're just gonna get busy, because per usual, it is that time to talk about what's happening in our community calendar, real quick community update. Earlier today, actually, was the Fridays for Future Global Climate Strike at 2 p.m. at the Governor's Mansion. Fridays for Future is a local group that is fighting, for climate justice. They were actually part of a worldwide global climate strike. Also earlier today, Apple Accountability Day.
Apple accountability.
Apple Accountability Day, the symbol that I don't show on my computer. It was hosted by the Upper Hudson Valley Code Pink,
Okay.
talking about the impact on the people in the Congo, as well as its connection to Palestine and Israel, and that don't buy the Apple 16. So that was at 5:30 earlier today in Albany. More details if you follow Upper Hudson Valley Code Pink, as well as some other organizations. And then tomorrow, oh wait, no, Grannies for Peace got two. So Grannies for Peace, we're at Colony Center today.
Okay.
They typically are on Fridays at the corner of Wolf Road and Central Ave, right by Colony Center.
Yeah.
2 to 3 o'clock, Grannies for Peace, and it is exactly how it sounds. Some wonderful older women.
Who's our home girl?
Mabel Leon.
Mabel
Mabel
Yeah.
Leon, absolutely holding the sign, holding down the fort for always. She actually was one of the letters to the editor recently, calling for an end to the genocide that's happening and to free Gaza. So big up to Grannies for Peace and our girl Mabel Leon. Tomorrow they're going to have another event for the International Day of Peace, but that also happens to be Malia's 13th birthday.
Well, I mean, international peace, Malia's 13th birthday. It's kind of like, what are we going to celebrate? We could do both ends. We could do both ends.
I don't know how peaceful it's going to be. She's turning 13.
I know.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
And then
Miles.
The wonderful Malia Miles. Next week, again, is Banned Book Week starting on the 22nd. On Tuesday in Albany at the Albany Library, they have a special Banned Book Week event. On next Saturday, the 28th, our boy Adonis doing his thing with You, Me, and Poetry. I may or may not be there saying some words. Mm-hmm. Hint, I will be.
Sincerely, Donnie.
Absolutely. And then the very next day is my 50th birthday.
Half a century.
Half a century. Roman keeps saying I'm a century old.
Yeah. Well, he's 7. He's 7. He don't really understand what it took to get to 50 because a whole lot of folks I grew up with ain't make 50. Unfortunately, I'm not laughing at them. Unfortunately, they ain't make 50. So it is a blessing to have lived the life that we lived and got to a place where we're at the age we are.
Yeah.
And have the perspective we have too, because like through all of that, there's a lot of experience gained, wisdom hopefully gained, relationships.
Thumbs up to that.
Yeah. So it's like it's important for us to
I know more
now. To
I,
be 50.
I definitely know more now than I did when I was 25.
All right. Listen, no worries. I got just enough money to afford that rocking chair I was looking for. I'll make sure
Did
I
you
make
hear?
sure you get it. You feel me? Like I'm just
You see
saying, I
what's
make sure
happening?
you get it. I make sure you get it.
Amira, come get your boy.
Alright,
I'm
making
just
sure. I'm just
saying,
saying.
like, this is
It's not a
bugging.
bad thing to be 50.
No,
Amira. Ain't Amira like 52? All right.
Amira and I are the same age. Her birthday's after mine.
Okay. All right. You sure?
Oh my
Alright.
God.
I didn't know. I wasn't
Yo,
certain. Amira.
why is he coming for you today?
You know how it goes.
So we do need to move along
Yes,
because we
let's
need to
move
talk
on.
about
Let's get
some
to the
stuff.
topics. We do
But
got some serious stuff to
also,
talk about.
there's some people already in the chat. Leslie, Amira, good evening. Leslie, what's up? Like, drop in the chat. You said you have some things to say. Like, definitely drop it in the chat. Anyone that watches at any point, you can drop it in the chat. If at some point you have a question, comment, concern, and it's when you're watching this recording and it makes you think about something like, oh, I really, was wondering about this. You can, of course, send us an email at untitledandfree@gmail.com. It's about to pop up on your screen. We are very accessible. Reach out. But Leslie, like, tell us what's up. But what are the things we're going to talk about while we're waiting for Leslie to,
I mean,
to
before you
drop?
say that, I also want to say like and subscribe to our YouTube page.
That's your new
Make sure,
thing.
listen, like, subscribe to the YouTube page. Keep following us. You see us now. You might not see us later. You know what I mean? Link in.
Yeah.
You're going to hear some really dope perspectives from the community, to which me and Jamaica both are members, longtime members from the bottom to the top.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we at the top yet, but we here. You know what I mean? Like we, you know what I'm saying? From the bottom, not necessarily the top, but we here, always representing the community, always pushing forward for the changes that we think are needed, always pushing the voices of our community, leadership development, etc., getting people in the position that they need to be to advocate for themselves. So what are we going to talk about?
Well,
there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about, and I can't believe I forgot to say what is this Sunday at 3:00 at Jerry Burrell Park.
Okay, shout it out.
Super shout out to the fact that this Sunday at Jerry Burrell Park in Schenectady, Stop the Violence in Our Schools, a community conversation to discuss specifically what's been happening in Schenectady, what the media has been reporting about acts of violence or conflict inside our schools with our students, and the conversation about weapons. What does that mean? What does that look like? How the media talks about it, what the reality is, the concerns and fears that families have, worried about the safety of their students, and the solutions that are possibilities. As well as a sitting school board member, I will share and answer any questions folks have about the logistics. If you're coming to a school board meeting, what can you expect? How much time do you have to speak? Is the school board going to actually reply to you? The answer is no. Not in that moment, not in the meeting, but I'll answer any and all questions folks have about our school board, the way we do business, et cetera, in the words of Sean Young, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera. It's an opportunity for you to have your voice heard, share your opinion, hear the opinions of your community, figure out what are some steps to actually activate the change that you think needs to happen in for your community, but for your children more specifically. And we're talking about what's happening in the school district. There's a lot going on.
And interesting,
and it's reasonable. Like, oh, yeah, something was happening.
Well, interestingly enough, that's what Leslie's talking about. So the question is that last Friday, across from her grandson's school, there was a bomb threat. They closed the school where there was a bomb threat, but not at her grandson's school. WTF? So I don't know which school it is, and fine with you not sharing for your own personal business. It depends on a lot. Are the two schools in the same school district? What's the level of communication? The thing I always tell parents and families, first and foremost, is reach out to your school directly.
Yeah.
And do it by email, not just a phone call.
Keep the record.
Keep your records. Keep your receipts. Send an email and specify this happened on this date and time. It is my understanding that that school was closed and this one wasn't. Why is that so? And if it is not the answer that you think is, sufficient, then reach out and I will let you know what the next steps are. But untitledandfree@gmail. But Leslie, you can reach me anytime. And it's in Connecticut. So that's a whole different thing. I do have family that lives down there, but reach out to me, Leslie, and I'm definitely willing to have a conversation with you offline. But we will be in the park on Sunday talking about the threats of violence, acts of conflict between students, what are the possible solutions, and what is the, logistics and practice of our district? How do decisions get made?
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this a lot, Jamaica. There's a lot more going on with a student who is a part of some act of violence at school
Yeah.
on any given day. And if to think that somehow suspending that student, expelling that student, arresting that student, jailing that student is the solution to what happened with that student, we're missing something. And this is kind of, the problem, I think, is that people are so easily caught up in the moment and think that addressing an acute problem is addressing the problem that is much more deep rooted.
Yeah.
And we don't take enough time to invest in what do we do about that.
Yeah.
If we continue to address the symptoms, we never get to the cause. And then these children, our children, continue to suffer the impact of that.
For sure.
There's a reason why
Yeah.
in our country we have the most school shootings by any measurement.
Yes.
By far the most.
Yep.
And the reason why our culture is inherently more violent when it comes to the schools or even just in our society than other places across the world.
Right.
And this is despite countries that have wars.
Right. And then also where those mass shootings happen.
Yeah.
And what those schools look like.
Yeah.
Is not where the metal detectors are.
Mm. Mm.
But this is good.
You want to get into that?
We were going to talk about other stuff.
Because you're about to teach me something. Because I'm like, word. I hope y'all paid attention. Because I'm like, what? So this is the obviously resident
education,
but also knowledge base around the ins and outs of what happens in any given school district, right. Especially New York State, because you've been doing this work for damn near like 2 decades.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. All the data, all the information, all the stories and everything that's happening. So I don't want to, we won't get stuck here, but I'm just
I'll try to synapsis. I'm
gonna let you do that and fix this mic.
Yeah. So the deal is that inside the buildings that are most likely to have metal detectors or weapons detection systems are the ones that have the largest population of Black and brown kids. The school districts that have experienced, unfortunately, these rates of mass shootings are predominantly white. Mm-hmm. And so the ratio is disproportionate when you look at where metal detectors are and where mass shootings happen. Mm-hmm. And the call for increased surveillance and security came after Columbine, mm-hmm. but targeted Black and brown schools, mm-hmm. where those extreme acts of violence were not happening. Not that there has been no violence or that there were never any weapons, and that the data shows that metal detectors don't prevent all weapons from entering the schools. Weapons detection actually won't prevent knives from entering the schools. And it's a capitalist project to get you to spend money on something to allay your fears without actually solving the problem.
I think there's a fundamental question that I have that I alluded to in kind of what I said to you earlier is what are we doing to address the root cause? Why are children coming to school with a weapon in the first place?
Right.
You said regardless of what the weapon is.
Yep.
Why is the child coming to school? The child, mind you, coming to school with a weapon in the first place. I think
because it's not safe in their communities.
And there's more, and there's multiple other reasons. What's happening at home, what's happening in their communities.
Yeah.
what failures of support might have happened in any given context that allowed a kid, and what I've seen, especially from schools predominantly white, where white kids have done, and we're talking about extreme acts,
Yes.
but there's a spectrum of
Indeed.
acts
Absolutely.
where that child may have not gotten support that they needed, and any bullying or any there's all these things that happen in a child's life way before they ever pick up a weapon and show up at school. Why aren't we addressing that?
When I was
Where's
in
that
high,
conversation
when I was
at?
in high school and girls had razors and were chasing me home, we didn't end up with metal detectors. It's an incremental wave of increased surveillance and security that targets Black and brown, predominantly Black and brown students and districts. The data's there. This is not me saying metal detectors are racist. This is me looking at over a decade worth of peer-reviewed research, to which, if anyone wants me to cite it, I'll send you the links. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah, not fully, not completely,
not what we're talking
but
about
clearly
today.
we're talking about it, and I think it is something that needs to be talked about. So show up.
Sunday.
You want more of this conversation? Show up Sunday in Jerry Burrell Park. What time?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Jerry Burrell Park will be there to continue this discussion. Please show up. Have something to say. Please share. We're not looking to talk at you. We want to make it a conversation like we always do.
And I'll answer any questions you have about the logistics of our district and the school board meeting, to be prepared to walk into that space.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Where are we at now?
We're talking about voting, but not in the way that other people talk about voting.
Okay. Talk about it. Let me hear.
So if you saw my little snippet of live earlier, when does everyone get notice about voting? When?
Election year.
During the election time, right?
Yeah.
If there's a primary coming up, maybe you get a notice. If it's the general election, absolutely. Are you registered to vote? Do you know where your voting location is? Oh my gosh. Do you know who the candidates are? Do you know blah, 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 blah. That conversation is not happening year round. When we have elected representatives in office year round, we're not asked to pay attention to the decisions they're making and think about, whether or not they're the best representative for you. And do you know your rights as a voter? Right. No one's talking about that until election time. Well, we talk about it before election time, but most people don't. I have a problem with that. Why do you think that is, Sean?
I mean, the interest is only in your vote and getting elected often, or too often, and not in actually continuing to engage with you in order to be informed about the decisions that are being made moving forward in the term of whoever gets elected. We're talking about how power is kind of cultivated, maintained, and not challenged by individuals in the community. I understand on the one hand the busy schedule, the schedule of an elected person, and I also understand that they are often met by lobbyists who have been paid to be there and push their issue.
Yep.
Big money interests who have lobbies that act for them, who are paid to be there and have the time.
Like the NRA.
And like the NRA, but not just the NRA. You've got major chains.
Yes.
Like whether it's any store, food store, whatever.
Pharmaceutical industry.
That stand up in the community. And on a local level, it's the people with the most money,
right,
and most flexibility of time, leisure of time,
yep,
to be able to show up and push their issues. While most of our residents, 40, 50, 60-hour a week work hours, and not able to fully engage in the same way. Therefore, their voices are heard much less, unless the whoever the candidate is, whoever's the incumbent or a person looking for the seat, is showing up to hear their opinion. And that means putting in the work.
Yeah. And
too often, our elected officials, they're just not willing to put in the work, and they're listening to the people who have more access to them. And then therefore we end up in a situation where those interests are supported, heard, and addressed versus those that come from the communities where that's not happening. And this is where organizations like we come in order to bridge that gap
Mhm.
between the communities that are underserved and the legislative officials who need to hear those voices.
Indeed. And not all elected officials are paid. School
right.
board members are not paid. Towns, cities, often a part-time pay, and many of them still have full-time jobs.
Mhm.
At the state level, they do get paid enough for it to be a full-time job. I think there was one legislator that only took his salary and didn't have, I'm not going to say their name in case I'm wrong. They didn't have a second job. Most have additional jobs. Some are lawyers working full time and taking their legislative salary. And then, the governor's the governor, and our state reps are our congressional reps as well. But there are, I guess, different balances within the lives of individuals, and the more, dare I say, higher up gets paid more and may not have another full-time job. Doesn't mean they don't have other full-time interests, that they don't have investments, that may be conflicts to their seat. But on the local level, it very much is minimal pay, expecting to do full-time work while having a full-time job. No excuse, because like if you're a representative, you're a representative. I'm not getting paid. I'm still walking the streets. So just, for some context, right? And the way it's structured, like this is the way it's structured.
Yeah. He was walking the streets for votes, right?
I meant that was walking. Someone's on a roll today. Amira, come get your boy.
I wonder though.
I was in the hood.
I wonder seriously if it makes sense, because you don't get paid, right?
Yeah.
If for all elected officials not to be paid, or at least not to be paid in the numbers that they are.
Well,
but then it won't matter, because those outside interests, like I see the Republicans always going after Nancy Pelosi and her stock.
Right.
They
do it to each other.
Owns. They do it to each other. So I'm just curious about the money in the game has an impact. It ain't just the money, but I know the money in the game has an impact about how people vote.
And that takes us
how people determine not like how they vote, but how the candidates also determine what they're standing for versus what they're not standing for,
and whether or not they're going to run.
Yeah, exactly.
Because not only do we face this crisis of our poor and marginalized communities not having access to full participation in civic engagement, which includes voting, but also not the ability to fully participate as candidates because of the financial barrier. That to win an election costs money. A lot less for a school board race, although some people have invested quite a lot in school board races
and lost.
And
I've
some,
seen y'all.
And
y'all
some,
lost.
some
they watching right now.
Some political. Somebody's off today. Some political parties have even backed school board candidates, even though school boards here in New York State are nonpartisan. And at any other level, what party you're with, do they have funding to support you in your race? Are they willing to support you in your race? Are you going to have to, primary to be on that line? How much money is that going to cost? Do you have a team? Can you print flyers? It's a financial risk, and you have to have money just to run. That eliminates some brilliant people who are poor.
Yes.
So they can't engage in that part of civic engagement. And then what does it feel like if I'm running around trying to take care of my kid at school and go to work and all these other things? How do I then also do this other thing?
Historically, the seats have been held by people who have the leisure to do it, meaning they are financially more stable and have way more support. More recently, what I was alluding to when I was saying y'all lost was there was folks that ran for the seat who had the full support of a political party in the city,
Yeah.
funding, I'm sure. And yeah, so I wanted to point that out just because you have the money doesn't mean you're the right person for the seat, but just because you have the money means you are more likely to get that seat than
Yes.
not.
Yes. You either have the money or you have the people.
Exactly. There you go.
Which one do you think I have?
I mean, we already know what you have. It certainly ain't the money.
It's not
the
no
people.
money. It's not no money.
It's the people.
But
which is to me a really a testament to like what you stand for, what we stand for, and for the people that showed up. Because regardless, you people had money, but they didn't have the people, and therefore they lost.
Yeah. The other piece, and like we're way short on time, is we're talking about your right to vote and civic engagement. Folks don't know their rights, period.
That's right.
And then different folks are either afforded their rights or not, period. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know that it is a right you have, you don't know that you can say, excuse me.
I mean, knowledge is power, right? Knowledge and action is even more power, right?
Why don't we know?
Say again.
Why don't we know our rights?
Why don't we know our rights?
Why don't we know our rights?
It's not something that's obviously centered as important enough for us to know on a regular basis, right? We don't know it until we're faced with some consequence of not knowing it, and then we try to learn it. It's not something that's taught, grade school up. It's taught later on. Same thing as voting. It's not taught grade school up. It's taught in high school or college. Or for some schools, it's college. They give you a little bit of it, but it's not something that's centered in our culture or in our society. Yeah, it's something that we should be a part of.
Right. It's more generational in families.
Yeah, just we got you. You don't need to know your rights. The authorities, they got you. The police, your city council, the mayors, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution and all the consequences of that, everything that falls from it, on city, state, or federal level. And you don't need to look too close. They got you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's working out that way, right? Actually, I do know it's not working.
It's intentional. They don't want us to know our rights because then they can deny us our rights and just move along and do what they do. Let's remember that these are conversations that we want to continue everywhere in our communities, on this platform. There's never enough time. We have to talk about it again and again. And hopefully y'all would tell your friends and join us next Friday. Focus Friday.
Have a lot of fun.
Because we are out of time. It was a lot. We had an audible that we played in the beginning. So
I mean, look, man,
I think it was important.
I think these conversations are always important. We do not have platforms that talk about the issues in our community the way we do. Please share any ideas, thoughts, concerns about what we're talking about and what you would like to see. And subscribe, like our page on YouTube. Join us next Friday. We'll be back with more discussion, more updates, etc. Jamaica Miles,
Sean Young. And follow us on Linktree. Go there and get all our links. Linktree, Untitled and Free. Folks on Facebook and YouTube are able to see it. Instagram, we're working on our tech. But yeah, Linktree, Untitled and Free. You get all our links. And we will be back still at 7 p.m. next week, even though summer is now over.
I know. We were wrestling with whether or not we were going to do it at 7. I like this time.
I know. I love it.
Much love, y'all. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. See you next week.
We will see you next week. We're going to rock out with something.
See you next week and stay fleet.
Is that really a thing?
I don't know. Maybe not for people my age. Much love, everyone.
All right.